Guys, you're looking at record-breaking Pacific Ocean temperatures, also up into the Sea of Cortez. Now, in this color graphic, you're seeing yellows, red, blacks, blues, but the yellows are the highest. And again, we're looking at anomalies. And when we're seeing numbers like this, I put it right here into the Sea of Cortez. Guys, you're going to see that we're dealing with 4.1 degrees centigrade. That's 7.8 degrees Fahrenheit above record normals, okay? This is very bad because what it's doing is setting up a blocking mechanism. And you can see where these yellow temps go all the way up into California offshore. That's going to block the moisture that people are expecting for the monsoon season in the desert Southwest, guys. And what I'm talking about, you can look at it on a lot of the reports, and the weather projections, and they're saying, even though they're saying that if it rains, a lot of it won't get into the river. If it snows, it won't. Guys, it may not even occur on any type of measurable basis. This is record-breaking. The Pacific is boiling, and we're going to look at it a little deeper. Plus, we got some other things that to look at about the Southwest and how it's going to affect people. So again, stay tuned. Guys, if we pull this up, the normal temperature for the Sea of Cortez in this area for June is about 75 degrees up to about 80. Right now it's at 85.5 degrees. And June, again, this is for June, and that's where I went back and looked at the data. And so, but what we're doing is we're going to go above that 10 degrees. That's the anomaly now because we're just in June. And the records show that as we get into July and August, these temps will increase. This is not good news. 10 degrees, guys, is an ocean changer. It's a global shift in the way that all of the weather sets up. It's a major factor, and we've known about it. We just didn't know to what degree or how hot it would get above normal. They said it would be record-breaking, but guys, we're getting into some dangerous territory here when you're blocking all the moisture coming over the Southwest. Now, let's switch to the surface as far as the lowest thing the satellite data can give us and look at the total precipitable water. That's how much moisture is in the atmosphere or that can be pulled out. But guys, we have major problems. Look along the Pacific Ocean here. This is a blocking ridge. The moisture's trapped offshore. This is a blocking ridge in itself here. And the moisture's not getting much further north than the Sea of Cortez. And look at the heat. Look at, again, we just had our cursor right in this area showing we were 7.2 degrees and higher above normal. Well, once you push air over all of that extra high temp water, this is what occurs. Look at now the heat being pushed into the desert Southwest and further north with not much available moisture at all. Now, the way you would tell, they don't go into it in depth, but the way you tell is to change and look at it a little bit higher, and that will give you whether or not moisture is setting up to come in for a midsummer monsoon. And what we're going to do is go from the surface, and we're going to look at two different heights. We're going to go to 250 and to 500 and see what we see there. Now, we'll start at 500, guys, and that would where you start to see some moisture stabilizing in the upper atmosphere, getting ready for the monsoon season. Look at what's happening, guys. Look at this. All the moisture is being blown in that layer away from the lower surfaces and over to the east. No moisture. And again, guys, that a picture's worth 1,000 words. I'll back it back a little bit. You can kind of see a little bit more of the globe here. But this goes up into Canada. And we got a blocking front here, stopping the moistures like nature saying, no, I'm tired of the desert and these areas being overrun. And again, this is the drier area. But now there's another height to check and to see if moisture is building. And we're going to go a little higher to 250 HPA. It looks worse, guys. Look at this. In both surface layer, going up to 500 HPO, then higher to 250 HPA, no moisture. It just gets worse. Look at this. The world is changing. We're seeing record amounts of the climate changing on the planet, guys, in just one season. Check that out. Amazing. Now, while we're here, guys, I want to drop back through from this height down through the layers. Again, we'll go to 250. We're going to be dropping and see if there's any moisture in any of the layers. There's 500 that we looked at. None there. Let's go a little lower, 700. This has to do with pressure, not height in feet. And so 700, nothing. 850, nothing. 1,000 feet, nothing. Back to the surface, nothing. But the telltale numbers for your upper atmosphere buildup for the monsoon, again, are 500 here and 250. Everything has changed from last year. The jet stream, everything is different, guys. We're going through major changes. Now, because warm waters drive low atmospheric pressure, again, remember this localized plus 3.9, again, we found it up higher to 4.1. Hot zone acts like an enormous gravitational pull for wind patterns. It is actively warping the 500 HPA, that level of pressure, mid-level steering currents, and it works like a massive thermal wall, accelerating the upper-level jet stream and causing it to buckle and warp around the basin that we're looking at. This effectively locks the dry donut hole blocker directly over the Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado headwaters. What are we talking about? Monsoon rain and snow. It's set up a block. The battle has many fronts. Now, when I first started, I found the 3.9 degrees centigrade. And then as I was looking deeper, after I put some of this data in, guys, I saw the 4.1 centigrade difference in the anomaly, how much hotter. And that changed the number from 7.2 degrees increase to 7.8 degrees increase. So it's a little higher than what we're seeing here. But pushing this baseline means the water is running at an unprecedented 7 degrees above normal for the exact date. Actually, almost 8, at 7.8 when you look at the 4.1. It isn't a minor seasonal variance. It's a full scale, listen, historic marine heat wave supercharged by the sudden arrival of the Super El Nino. Because warm waters drive this low atmospheric pressure, this localized hot zone acts like, again, an enormous gravitational pull for the wind patterns. It's set up all across the West Coast, and it's not going to let much moisture at all occur. What else is it doing? It's increasing the wind slightly. It's increasing the evaporation slightly. It's increasing the land heat quite a bit. And again, the extreme heat, guys, doesn't stay in the water. This massive amount of thermal energy rising off of the 3-point-C hot pockets, that's around the California coast now, acts like a physical wedge in the middle atmosphere. It balloons the subtropical high-pressure ridge directly over the southwest, creating that warm, heavy lid we're tracking. This lid, like a dome, is what forces the high-altitude wind highways. Remember, we went raised from 500 to 250 on the pressure scale. But this lid is what forces the high-altitude wind highways to buckle and split, shearing the moisture completely around the northern headwaters. Do you understand what we're talking about? And the fact that we're seeing this hot pocket, this zone over the southwest, confirms that the Super El Nino is operating at a massive history-making energy surplus. The heat is locked in, the moisture is being rerouted, and the physical decline of the reservoirs remain firmly on track for the late September reckoning. And what that late September reckoning is, guys, is that's when the feds step in. But we're seeing July and early August as far as some of the problems with the dam. But again, in the video last night, we talked about the feds and what they're going to do under normal conditions on September 29th or at midnight and step in and take control. But we've got to get to September 1st, and we're quite a ways from that when we're looking at the end of July for the mead to hit 1035, right? So they may have to speed up their plans somewhat. And what you're going to continue to see again is this. And so don't be fooled by it. We hope for it, but don't be fooled because we have the data. It says the mainstream channels are going to look at this record 84.6 degree Fahrenheit water in the Gulf and say the southwest monsoon is coming to save us. We're seeing it already, even on YouTube channels. But look at the map. This moisture is a tropical desert trap. It dumps torrential rain on the low desert floor where it can't be captured. It will dry up and run into parched soil before it hits a river, if it occurs much at all. While we look at that 500 HPA, a lower pressure zone there in the height, guys, that is steering currents completely that shear away the northern headwaters. It's cutting off the entire supply. It's like nature has planned it, and that's the way it's come. And our Father is saying, well, I gave you a chance. You abused it again, and I'm going to have to take back control to save this beautiful planet. And guys, we're looking just as far as water temperature. They're saying 29.2% or 2 degrees centigrade, excuse me. But that translates to 84.6 degrees Fahrenheit. For the Gulf of California, this is a massive record-breaking temperature anomaly for June. And then when we toggle over to the anomaly, and we're showing 7.8 degrees above normal. And so, again, what we're looking at is a big problem. And there's going to be some things that have to be adjusted. We've talked about adjusting your business or moving or adapting, migrating, just about everything you can talk about. But we're going to go just a little different direction here in just a moment. And I think it's important information. Let's just put it that way. Now, again, if there's a break in the pressure somewhere, what we're seeing with this temperature of the oceans, guys, it's boiling a tremendous amount of water into the upper atmosphere via evaporation. And it's record-breaking at this point. So if you were to see a break in it in the desert southwest, it would be a monsoonal flood, very temporary, but could be very dangerous. Again, it won't really affect the height of the river or the reservoir as much, but it could be dangerous because there's record amount of moisture up there that we're seeing it being pushed off towards the east. But if there's somewhere you get a break in one of those high-pressure zones, then you see a big storm coming in from that direction, you be prepared for massive runoff. Do you understand what I'm saying? This weather's changing. You've got to look at it just a little differently. And this is for all the people all over the desert areas, all the way through the Colorado River Basin. These breaks in the pressure could become very dangerous very quickly. Guys, and that is why they're calling this not a localized thermal disruption, but a global thermal disruption. Let that sink in a moment. And now they're saying, looking north into the Utah-Wyoming Pen is what it's being called, the precipitable water completely drops off. The northern headwaters that feed our dams are trapped in a dry donut hole. What rain will fall on the desert floor, but the reservoir lifelines are bone dry. Keep that in mind, guys. Now, I moved up that coastline towards California with some of these temperature maps, and we're getting 60.4 degrees Fahrenheit in the water right off Monterey Bay. It's an incredibly loud signal, guys. Normally, the deep water upwelling in Monterey Canyon keeps these coastal waters much colder in June. Hitting 15.8 degrees Celsius, or again, 60.4, confirms that the cold California current has officially buckled. The tropical heat from the Super El Nino is successfully pushing a massive wall of warm water way too far north. We saw that coming down the coast and how it was blocked off out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So, guys, it's going to affect not just the Southwest, but needed moisture all along the West Coast for the rivers, for the other areas, for the big dams there. We've watched different ones dry up, overflow, and we're probably about to witness a lot of attention coming this fall and early spring on these northern dams. We've seen it before. Orville Dam, we did a full video series on that at one time when it was overflowing and tearing down the concrete on the spillway. Remember that, guys? Super damage, but it's going to be just the opposite. Now, they're calling this a sudden thermal jump. The temperature reality is that it's moving into the yellow, and that was the hottest sections that I showed you on the Null School map, the warmest water. That means that the water temperature is jumping out of the 13 degrees Celsius, the 55-degree range, and climbing up to the 59 to 63 degree range. For the Monterey Bay current system in June, these temperatures are significantly higher than the historic baseline. This yellow band represents the vanguard of the El Niño tropical mass. It shows that the cold California current is not just being compressed, it is actively being cooked and overtaken from the south. Again, it's going to push the moisture away from there and further north. And guys, just to give you one more idea before we switch gears slightly, I've got the green dot here, and you can see this is moisture being pulled up from the very warm Pacific waters here. And what it's showing in total precipitable water is 45.2 kilograms per meter square. See that? Now, that's available water, and I've got it set for the surface. Now, the difference between that and the surface, say, here along the Colorado River Basin is 6.4 kilograms. So there is zero, basically, amount of moisture. Again, here we have 6.4 kilograms metric square. Here, a little lower, 50.5. So there's a great amount of difference. And it's a bad situation, guys, but it is reality. And just moving everything over a little bit, you get further to the west, still 8.3. But what we're looking at, guys, is all along this area, we're seeing the block. Moisture's trapped out here in the Pacific. But look at all the warm air being pushed inland from everything from the Pacific. Here, let me get it as close as we can get it. Look at this, all the way down. Just pumping up and into the desert Southwest. And we'll just move this moisture with 8.3. We'll go a little further up. 5.2, guys, staying on the river. 6.6 kilograms. And moving down again, just not much, 7.9 compared to the moisture areas. Now, we possibly are about, again, changing directions, see something called the Defense Production Act. And that will happen because it gives the federal government the legal authority to prioritize national defense infrastructure over any private contract or state law. Now, that would mean that the states have no say-so on anything. The feds will handle it. But it also means that you've got to watch what is under legal authority as far as national defense infrastructure. I think, I may be wrong, someone look it up, some of the data centers may be involved in that, especially those that supply information for, the military and things like that. It would kind of make sense, wouldn't it? Now, before we move on, let's take a look at a little chart we put together here. We've had 3 major disasters in the history of the U.S. as far as weather and climate. One was the year without a summer. We've talked about it in 1816. We had volcanic ash blocking the sun. The year without a summer. People had to migrate away from the Northeast just to plant and eat. And the scope of that was not just the Northeast, but it was also Europe. The population impacted was about 10 million. The escape route was migration from the New England to the Midwest frontier. Then in a few years later, in the 1930s, we had the Dust Bowl. Again, it was poor farming and localized drought. They cut down all the tree lines that could block the high wind and buffer that somewhat, keep the soil intact. It was poor planning. And that was in the Central Great Plains. 2.5 million were displaced. But here, the Colorado River collapse of 2026, it's a systematic aridification and over allocation. It affects 7 U.S. states and Mexico. In the beginning it does, but that affects 40+ million people. What's the migration pattern or the escape route? There's nowhere to go. The destination is dry in that area. You understand what I'm saying? It'll have to end up somewhere up into the Great Lakes before it's said and done, because we're seeing this warmer, dry air move into the Northwest Pacific states. Now, let's look at this again as from a financial point that will involve other areas. But what we're going to see, guys, when the water dries up and you got all these subdivisions that, from what you guys are telling me, they're still building in Arizona and in Nevada, still building and under these conditions. But what we're talking about is an unusable suburb. Once a Tier 3 shortage, that's what we're talking about at Meade at 1035, starts, or infrastructure shutdown occurs, major national insurance providers will declare specific zip codes in the Southwest uninsurable due to systematic utility failure. Do you understand what's going to happen when they deny you insurance? What is your bank going to do? Now, and you've got something else that's going to happen. It's called the valuation plunge. We've talked about it. We're going to go a little deeper. Without home insurance, banks cannot issue mortgages. They don't need to in these areas. But what's going to happen is they're going to have to eat a lot of mortgages from people simply handing them the keys and walking away from the loan because they have no other choice. Without home insurance, banks cannot issue mortgages. The home buyer market in these valuable regions will instantly freeze. Real estate values in the outer rings of Phoenix and Vegas and the Inland Empire are projected to plunge by 40 to 60% within 18 months. Guys, in this 18 months is previous estimates going along with the 24-month period that we saw from the Bureau of Reclamation. Both of them are a year off. This will erase billions of dollars in middle-class generational wealth and destroy the local property tax base that funds schools and emergency services. But guys, there's other things that's going to happen. When you have millions of people handing those keys back to the mortgage banks, the mortgage lenders, you're going to see them also collapse. Now, if you got, which not many of us do, if you got $250,000 or more in a bank account, according to FDIC, they, with the new Frank Dobbs law that was not new, but it was since the bail-in law, they, again, can take a good portion of your savings, right? If you're under 250 by law, they're supposed to not be able to bail in your account. But there's an even greater problem that lies under that surface. A lot of the banks that will not take your money because it's below 250, or the FDC won't take it, or allow the bank to take it, then that is guaranteed by the FDIC, right? Well, they have a limit of how much they can supply. It's a very limited amount of money that they can hand out as far as federal insurance, and they're broke. Nowhere near the amount of the homes that we're talking about. They don't have it. Then what happens if the banks collapse? It doesn't have to have a bail-in. They will just fold up. We've seen it happen before. Now, under natural conditions at that point, the feds would step in. You'd see your bank close down maybe over the weekend, 3 or 4 days, while they shifted positions inside it, while the feds took over or sold it off or whatever. And then possibly you would be allowed back to get your, to use your ATM or use your card or whatever, or to draw money out of the bank. But guys, again, that will be when they limit their funding and their ability for funding, it kind of clogs up the whole system. But what they're projecting is, again, the FDIC can bail all these people out when they can only bail out less than 10%. And they're broke. The banks are in the same position. And what you're going to see very quickly is hyperinflation possibly, but the value of the dollar is going to be terrible, what you can buy with it. And here's my advice. If I was tied up and they had a gun to my head and they asked me what you had to do, I would say, get your money out of all these places. Now, something that the FDIC cannot touch, before I go any further, in the normal ways, is if you use a credit union. but everything has a chance of collapsing. In other words, with the credit union, you're not federally insured and you're not in a bail-in banking situation either. But we're going to see a lot of problems because I don't know how many people have used the credit unions for mortgages. So what you need to do is turn your money not into gold or silver at all. That would be the second most stupid thing you can do, and a lot of people are falling into that trap because you can't eat it. And I've told you about talking to that coin dealer that buys and sells silver and gold here in this state. He said he wouldn't give you a basket full of gold. He wouldn't trade you that for a loaf of bread. He would not give up his loaf of bread if you walked in there with a basket full of gold and silver when this collapse starts to happen. So it will be the stumbling block. But guys, you want survival food, you want water, accessibility, water filtration, and you want some type of backup power. I suggest solar power simply because you don't have to buy gas or anything else, right? You don't have to tie to the grid. Backup solar power, guys. It starts in different levels. You can get enough to keep one room cool. You can increase that over time to include more areas of your house. Many of these companies now have in-house or similar to in-house financing that's not tied into the banks, where you pay over a year or 6 months or whatever it is, depending on what you get, right? But if you don't do these three things, you're going to be caught off guard very bad. Again, this bailout situation that's turned into a bail-in will collapse the whole system. You may think that, again, having a lot of money in there is going to help you. I don't think it is, because the only way to protect it, and people talk about it before, is to spread it out over mass accounts to where you keep your limits very small in the different sections and where they all can't be affected at one time. That will work for a while, as long as there are banks that can handle the situation we're about to see. I don't think it will last very long. So you can do that, though. That is something that people are doing, are going to credit unions and handling it like that. But what I would do, I've been around a long time and I've watched a lot of things. You turn everything you can get rid of now, extra boats, motorcycles, toys, whatever it is, and you start looking around. Our website, not going to do an advertisement, but we have the #1 survival food on the planet and the #1 water filtration systems. All of those are also into the category to where you can get them over a certain amount of time, 4 to 6 months or whatever, and be prepared. You can get a year's supply, 3 months supply, whatever you're doing. I'm not going to turn it into an ad. Go to BP Earthwatch and take a look at that, just for your own good. Again, we only accepted the #1 items. We don't sell a lot of product. I don't do a lot of advertisement. But what we do have was heavily researched. Many of you have our water filters, and many of you have a good stock of our long-term survival food, 10 and 20 years, guys. Again, not an advertisement. Don't take it as that. But we prepared, and we prepared for you to prepare over a dozen years ago. So take it to heart. And some of the things that we're hearing, guys, from Colorado Public Radio and the University of Buffalo is this. We're going to see a well pumping mutiny. As surface water canals from the Colorado River dry up, farming districts in the Imperial Valley and Central Valleys will begin pumping groundwater at unprecedented, unregulated rates. This will cause neighboring municipal drinking water to run completely dry, triggering immediate emergency lawsuits between local cities and these agricultural districts. No amount of legal ease can create water. In places like Arizona and southern Nevada, fast-growing suburban water authorities will begin denying building permits and physically shutting off water connections to unincorporated county lands to preserve their own municipal core reservoirs. Local sheriff's departments and municipal police forces will find themselves caught between enforcing water shutoffs and maintaining public peace. Guys, this is going to lead to the feds stepping in under emergency acts. And guys, the Nature Conservancy has out this report. I think it's important, but I think it's very conservative, and I guess that's natural. But it's called the reverse migration strain. It says when 40 million people rely on a single river system that is structurally failing, as we're seeing it now, it's each of the 3 dams are in trouble that we've been watching. A permanent 20 to 30% reduction in population across the Southwest means 8 to 12 million climate refugees moving into the Great Lakes. Again, this is their report. The Northeast and the American Midwest over the next decade. Again, the Northeast is going to have problems because of this heat, but the American Midwest, guys, the Ogallala and other aquifers are really low, and agriculture is becoming very difficult in some of these areas. So I don't know how much that will help. But again, those receiving regions do not have the housing, the grid infrastructure, or municipal planning ready to absorb a migration of that scale. Again, the Nature Conservancy. And according to PBS, which I don't trust very much, but looking at this report, it kind of is telltale. It says, first, we're going to see the rural farming communities in the Upper Basin and the Imperial Valley empty out. But the reason I'm using PBS is because even this group is paying attention now. And that's pretty thick-headed group to get through. Anyway, rural farming communities in the Upper Basin and Imperial Valley will empty out. Water allocations could drop to zero. Farming families and thousands of ag workers will be forced to leave dried up counties to find work in urban centers or other states. So many jobs are being taken by AI. I don't know how it will work out. People are not number one anymore. But the real estate and insurance collapses again in major southwest suburbs. Migration will be forced by economics as water utilities skyrocket. This would be an early warning sign for you guys there thinking about any movement. But as water utilities skyrocket, their tiered pricing to suppress demand, home insurance companies will pull out of high-risk arid zones entirely. Think about it. So you're going to be abandoned by the people you've been paying millions of dollars to in your time of need. Citizens will migrate simply because their single biggest asset, their home, becomes unmarketable and unlivable without water, and possibly not long without air conditioning. High-tech industries, including the multi-billion-dollar semiconductor plants in Arizona and the newly planned AI data center clusters, will be forced to abandon their facilities due to lack of municipal utility guarantees. When the jobs leave, the population must follow. And that's exactly true, guys. And it's going to lead into the next video talking about the data centers. And Japan has a new technology that uses a hell of a lot less electricity and water. But they're even looking past that point at putting data centers in space. And were about 2 months ago, only 2 people that could do that. It was Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. But for some reason, Jeff Bezos' toy, his big giant rocket, exploded and almost blew up the whole landing site. So now the only person that can deliver enough satellites to space, and what they're going to do, guys, and this is in the plans, it's already set up with the satellites that are there now, is to move the data centers into space. They won't be pulling water from the planet or electricity. It will be solar powered, and because the natural temperatures are much cooler, they will have that temperature problem. And he's looking to put up over 1 million birds or satellites. And again, Bezos was his competition. And again, that's out of the game. And any building of new technology cannot match the pace of what we're seeing, the drying desert in that pace. In other words, all these future technologies that they are talking about cannot occur in time, but that's their plan. Again, Bezos' rocket's gone. Elon is in charge of the technology, the only technology as far as data centers and control centers into space. Now, you see what the space race is about? Well, we have the Space Force, because those satellite systems will be targets. Other countries will have the same technology, but Musk is pushing to be number one as far as numbers, and I would call it the king of the data control station in space. Again, Bezos is out of the race right now. So that will be highlighted in probably the next video, with some details on that and some details on the technology that Japan is using and how Elon will accomplish some of this using, again, not copper wire, but laser technology. Guys, we're watching this. You watch it again, trying to give you data that you can look at that has been double checked and checked and checked, so that you can see the clear picture, so you can make clear decisions based on true data. Again, we're watching it, guys. Our Father loves you. I love every one of you. It's a major heads up. Be safe.